Welcome. My name is Bert Verhoeven. I'm the Associate Professor at Flinders University and the Program Director of the Innovation Enterprise Program at Flinders, where we run an undergrad and postgrad program, and also develop and design and execute acceleration programs for New Venture Institute. I'm going to talk today about active empathy, walking in the customer's shoes, create a better shoe, or even change the shoe industry. The problem I want to talk about, the challenge I want to talk about, is how to balance analysis and strategy with bias towards action in order to cross the knowing-doing gap. We all know that founders and innovators need to have a bias to action. You need to go out of the building, as Steve Blank has told us and has learned us, and then test our assumptions and go, move on, iterate. And at the same time, you need to have some analysis and some strategy to make your decisions. And often it is difficult to combine the two. And what we then see in universities is that it is also very difficult to cross that knowing-doing gap. So universities are very good at knowing things, but the doing part becomes an issue. Now, I propose that in our program, by activating empathy, and empathy is an emotional perspective taking, and it's how you experience the world, feel, see, hear, think, and do. By activating empathy, we can feel connection and cross the knowing-doing gap. Some context: I'm at the Flinders University, and about 4 years ago, the Vice Chancellor and the leadership team decided that every student should do at least one topic in innovation and enterprise. That could be thousands of students. We're teaching at the moment over 1,000 of students, and it's going well. We're going up from 18th to 5th in the entrepreneurship education rankings of Australian universities, and our program is fully driven by competencies. So we want to cross that knowing-doing gap, and our learning design follows the innovation process from discover, problem solution fit, then look at creating a product market fit, and then delivering on a business model and go-to-market strategy to scale. As I said before, we are competency driven. Here's a whole overview of our competencies, but for this talk, the most important one is obviously the empathy on the left, and I also argued that to be able to learn empathy, you need a growth mindset and reflection at the same time. So those three competencies I want to talk about today. So the problem is how to balance that analysis and bias towards action, so we can cross that knowing-doing gap. And for that, we divide empathy into 3 types after Daniel Coleman and Paul Ekman. We're assuming there's cognitive empathy, where you see people's views, and that is obviously very important with the analysis part. There's emotional empathy, where you feel what people feel, so you can take that into your analysis and strategy development. And there's compassionate empathy, where you act to help, so you turn your seeing and feeling into acting. And obviously that really applies well to an experiential learning, where you also want people to cross the knowing-doing gap by starting to act. And so compassionate empathy is something we value. So how do we teach our students empathy? That's what I want to show you today. Well, we use tools and experiential learning, and for that we do that in 3 stages, as I said before. We teach in stage 1 about the problem solution, and then we talk about customer user empathy interviews. In stage 2 we teach the entrepreneurship game, and in stage 3 we do the negotiation challenge. And in combination with the concept of the founder's bias towards action, that language, we suggest to call compassionate empathy active empathy, because it activates people. So I want to go deeper into the tools that we use in the 3 different stages. So the first stage is the customer user empathy interviews and observations and prototyping. And the interviews are there to develop cognitive and emotional empathy skills, and the prototyping helps to turn it into action. Yeah, you develop a solution for people and then test that solution to get their feedback. So if you think about the interviews, then it's about watching, doing, putting yourself into the customer's shoes, and it's about listening and talking. And what we found is that the listening part is difficult for people. Open questions is very difficult. And reflective listening is also something that students need to practice. So we practice this a lot. We have students practice in class, in all kinds of exercises, and we also have them go outside the building and practice talking to the ecosystem. But no matter how well you think you are in reflective listening or open questions, it turns out that that's a very difficult part of learning, and we obviously haven't learned that enough in our previous education. In year 2, we look at the entrepreneurship games, and we build a social media presence. And so the entrepreneurship games is really there to bring the empathy into practice. So there's 3 entrepreneurs, 1 user in a group in the class, and they're all students. The entrepreneurs have to interview the user about their job to be done. Then they have get a few moments to design the best possible solution to solve that job to be done. And then they have to sell that to the user, and the entrepreneur that does that the best, the user decides, gets the money. And then there's a next round and a next round. And we've also played this game with problems. How do you solve world hunger, for example? It works very similar. You can just have a user using world hunger, and you ask the people to ask all kinds of questions and then design a solution for that. And the second one is to build a social media presence. So we have students creating blogs and presence on Facebook and Instagram, etc. To develop, in this case, very much compassionate skills. The idea is to connect communities out there that are interested in their ideas, and then to lead change by bringing those communities together. And as we said, empathy fuels connection, so they need to show empathy to understand those communities first, and then find solutions in terms of active empathy to connect the two. This was some of the prototyping tools that we talked about. Very important, obviously, again, to bring empathy into action and to create a model of your empathy analysis to show to users. And in the final year, we go to the highest level, I guess, where we develop a deep feeling of the 3 types of empathy in a role play, term sheet negotiation, where there's a founder team and an investors team, and they prepare negotiation with live negotiation, where they then have to understand the other party, feel the interest of the other party, their movements, their emotions, keep the relationships going, and at the same time develops new solutions on the spot. So very much active, compassionate empathy. This is where everything comes together and has to be done live, which is very difficult, obviously. Those 3 kinds of levels and the 3 kinds of empathy can only be taught in an experiential way, we believe, if it is supported by a growth mindset and also learning in growth mindset. And we specifically for empathy believe that students learn through effort. And if they believe that, if they get rewarded for effort and persistence and praised for effort, then they will keep doing it even if they make mistakes. And obviously, if they fail, they should not feel threatened, they should persist in trying to get more empathy. So there's a clear follow-up from failing. Is you can do things better by going back again and talk and create a better understanding. And the second part, I think, is a major pillar for empathy development. Is experiential learning requires reflection. Reflection on how you did, and to do reflection well, you need empathy. Yeah, when you talk about what happened, you need to describe that, and the analysis and so what, and then now what is the active empathy, where you turn your findings into action. So to finalize, to finish this presentation, I put together some propositions for discussion. I would love you to discuss this with us. Please ask questions. Let us know about, for example, point 1. The problem is how to balance analysis and strategy with bias to action in order to cross the knowing-doing gap. For the solution is, in my view, is developing and activating empathy, as empathy feels connection. I'm really curious to hear your opinion about that. The second one is building skills, and active empathy needs foundation in cognitive empathy and emotional empathy skills. The third one is crossing the knowing-doing gap. The complexity of learning and juggling the 3 skills goes up from year level 1 to 3 with related exercises. So there's a clear up the game in those 3 years. The fourth one is the growth mindset as a pillar. Then and reflection also as the second pillar for empathy development. And the final one is that skills in cognitive and emotional empathy help students walk in the customer's shoes, which is hopefully fueled by cognitive and emotional empathy. And then develop active empathy skills to help create a better shoe, or even change the shoe industry. I thank you very much. I'm always eager to hear your feedback and your questions, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.